delighted to have with us today Charlotte Fitzpatrick, and Charlotte works for BT. She's a higher apprentice or degree apprentice. I think she could be a degree apprentice, she did tell me. And Charlotte's going to share her experience of how she actually became an apprentice with BT. So this is the introduction. We can have questions, I think probably best at the end. What I've actually done, we put vacancies together for the local area of the schools I'm going into. Now, for you, it's a bit different because you all work with young people throughout Surrey. So what I chose, I sort of went in the middle of the county when I was doing the vacancies and looked at Woking, because I thought, well, actually, Woking is probably the middle of the county, and let's use Woking for a start. So if I run through the presentation, and I'll take some questions at the end. Okay, next slide, please. I'm going to feel like the government now.
Thanks.
Okay, so what are apprenticeships? Well, firstly, they're great. They're a real job, and I think it's really important to remember if you're doing an apprenticeship, or if your young people choose to do an apprenticeship, they are actually getting a job, and they earn a salary, and they work for at least 30 hours a week, which makes it a full-time job, and they study towards job-related qualifications. Now, this is the bit that I always really like to emphasise. Now, these qualifications are made for industry by industry. It's not just like perhaps college or university is actually going, let's deliver this. This is actually where employers have come together and said, this is the qualification that we need for our industry, and actually we will turn this into an apprenticeship. And it takes a long time to do that. It can take probably, some of the standards that have come out have taken up to 3 years, but you're probably looking at about, on average, about a year for that qualification to actually be able to come to the market as an apprenticeship. As you would imagine, it's a job. You get a contract of employment, they'll be paid holiday pay, sick pay. And the other part that I always really like to emphasise is a real job with real responsibilities. So I know in the past when I've been out talking to parents have got a little bit worried and thought, oh, OK, so the apprentice, it's just cheap labour. Perhaps they'll come in and they'll make the tea and make the coffee, do a bit of filing. And that's kind of some of the images that we get and some of the perceptions that we get. And that really is not the case. They have to follow a programme of study to enable them to get the experience that they need to actually get the qualification at the end. So really important to understand that that real job with responsibility will be happening, and they'll be learning literally from day one when they start. Okay, next slide, please. So again, in the past, there's been a few myths about apprenticeships. The fact that, do they get paid very much? And we'll talk about salaries as we move on, but yes, they earn a salary. What I love about apprenticeships and what makes apprenticeships very true to me is that 90% of the people that go on to an apprenticeship actually stay in work. Now, that's because the employers are actually ensuring that they are making sure that they have the people in their industries that they want to keep. So they're not training you as a charity as such, they're training young people because they actually want them to stay in work for their succession planning for the company. So really important to understand that 90% of our apprentices actually stay in work. And our apprentices have a good social life too. I've met, there were 3 young lads actually that came to a school, I think about a year ago with me, and they worked for, we've lost our slides. They worked for Microsoft, and they had planned originally to go to university. I think one of them had actually gone to university, hadn't worked out, and he decided, actually, do you know what, I'll have a look on the apprenticeship website. He had a look on there, and he found this job with Microsoft. And what actually ended up happening was these 3 young lads ended up sharing a house, living in Reading, having a really sort of, I felt very much like a uni experience working for Microsoft. They were actually young people working flexi time, managing their time going into Microsoft, and they were having a ball. They were really, really enjoying themselves. One of those was on a degree apprenticeship. The other 2 were actually working on higher apprenticeships, and they were really, really enjoying this experience. And they were loving it because they had no fees to pay. They were being paid, And actually they had relocated. So they had done that. They had realised that actually the university, and they had taken this this big move, which obviously isn't easy, to gain a qualification through working for Microsoft, and they were great lads actually that I met. Okay, next slide please. Okay, now the range of apprenticeship, wow, it's just growing and growing, and it grows daily. I think we're over 250 new apprenticeship standards now on the market. So this is what, 15 of them. But there's things on there that never used to be there when I was doing apprenticeships way back. You wouldn't see, for instance, an architect. Now, an architect used to be 7 years at university. And again, a little story I have that I can share with you was about a young lad who went to Reigate College, and he had his 3 places at university, and I think this was about 2.5 years ago, and he knew he was going, but he knew the apprenticeship was coming out to be an architect. So Max, he comes along to some events with me sometimes. Max actually got in touch with South Bank University, who were going to be new and offering this architectural apprenticeship. And it was in the August, he got his results and he got in contact with South Bank, and they said, look, Max, we'd really like to take you. You're absolutely ideal. You're the sort of person we would like. But actually, remember, you need a job. You can't do an apprenticeship without a job. So what Max actually did, and this is no joke, in the August, he wrote to, it wasn't 50 employers, he wrote to 49. He always likes to say his 49 employers, and he wrote to 49 architectural practices across Surrey. And this is the point where I think it just shows how sometimes you have to be so resilient and you have to put the effort in. Out of all of those 49, 1 replied. But actually, that 1 that replied offered Max a job. He's now just going into his he's halfway through his 3rd year. I forget how quickly this year's going. And Max, and what I love to hear is his employer are absolutely over the moon with what he's brought to the company. I think within 6 months he was actually going out on site, and they just have nothing but good things to say to him. He's represented me in Apprenticeship Week, he's come to events. And what was really lovely is I went to a Woking school and did exactly this presentation only a couple of months ago, and I was telling one of the teachers actually came to me and said, you know, we really love the Max story. Any chance, you know, how can we get somebody to become an architect? So I told them what Max had done, and then actually got in touch with the firm that Max works with, and they were happy. They're at a position now where they could possibly take on another apprentice. And I think that says it all, really, that through somebody going in there, showing their initiative and actually working hard has meant actually the firm, maybe they won't take graduates anymore. Perhaps it's just going to be all about apprentices, but great to see that. And on this slide also you see nursing. I think it's important to remember that it's not just nursing in the NHS. They are what we call the largest levy payer. So all employers with a payroll over £3 million have to pay into what we call the apprenticeship levy. You may have heard of this, but it is important because it helps you to understand that employers across Surrey who are paying the levy, the only way they can get that money back is to spend it on apprenticeships, which is why so many more apprenticeship opportunities have been developed and more standards. And in the NHS, okay, a lot of our nurses are going over to the apprenticeship route. But actually, we find, I think they have over 200 odd other opportunities in NHS, different occupation areas, where actually you can go in by doing an apprenticeship. So it's always really good to have a look at the local hospitals and see what their apprenticeship programs are. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is a range of those levy paying employers, and you'll see, you know, lots of familiar names on there. We know, and you know, sadly COVID has affected every industry, and it's at this point where, you know, I see people like BA on there, and you know, I know some of the other Airlines are really struggling at the moment. We all know that. We know retail's struggling, which I can't see BA. Oh, yes, I knew it was on there at the bottom. And we know other airlines are obviously going to be struggling. We know retail's struggling. But we have seen quite a lot of apprenticeship vacancies still coming to the market, much lower than it was, but we have seen quite a lot still happening. I always like to mention the Cabinet Office. Now, I usually go up there during apprenticeship week. We do a big sort of evening reception, and it's always good to see the ministers walking around with their apprentices, really up there. And actually BAE Systems, I think they've just been advertising 70 jobs at BAE Systems, and they were awarded last week as being a Employer of the Year for apprenticeships. So there are some still some amazing opportunities, and as we go through, I'll share some of those with you. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and the other thing we tell people to do is look inside the company. So if we use, for instance, IBM as an example, IBM have been delivering apprenticeships, always get involved with the apprenticeship awards as well, which is lovely. And they deliver apprenticeships not just in IT. And it's important to remember that a lot of these large companies will deliver apprenticeships in all of these sort of, we call them sort of the back office opportunities that you might be able to do an apprenticeship in. So, you know, you might go and work for IBM, and the chances are you're always going to touch a computer, but you might be working in finance, or you're going to be, but you're not going to be in the programming side. You might be working in cybersecurity for a company, obviously really big at the moment. And it's really interesting to explore some of these areas. And when we talk about how to find an apprenticeship, that's where I think it's really important that we look into that for some of your young people. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the different levels of apprenticeships. This is always a bit tricky because it's like comparing apples and pears, really. But an intermediate apprenticeship is the equivalent of having 5 good GCSEs. A level 3 apprenticeship is like 2 A levels. And level 4 to 7, you can do a higher apprenticeship. That isn't a degree apprenticeship, but it's like working from foundation degrees right up to master's degree. And the 6 and 7s are the degree apprenticeship only. So a lot of the universities, some of the colleges as well, will offer degree apprenticeships, and underpinning all of those will be skills, knowledge and behaviours that you have to be competent to complete your apprenticeship. So it does get complicated. But what happens is we find, particularly at the A-level side, that I see that are coming out with, say, 2 or 3 good A-levels, would then expect to go straight onto a higher apprenticeship or a degree apprenticeship. Now, I always sort of chat to them about it, because what is really important is the job that they're going into, and I think the progression that the company is able to offer. So somebody with 3 good A levels might still start on a level 3 apprenticeship. It doesn't automatically mean you can progress, but in some cases they do. And the same, when you're looking at a level 2, if somebody comes out with 5 good GCSEs, it wouldn't necessarily mean they go straight onto a level 3 because they won't have had the practical experience. But I always think when they go for interviews, they should be asking, what is the progression that I can expect within the company? And that is the important thing, the role and the fulfillment that person is going to get within that company working on an apprenticeship. So I always get a bit hung up about the levels, to be honest. Okay, next slide, please. So how does an apprenticeship work? Okay, so most of their time, if you do another click as well, please, Anna. Most of your time will be spent what we call on the job, learning on the job, probably working with a mentor, sitting with them, close to them, so they can ask questions. It might mean that they actually have an ex-apprentice who works as a mentor. Perhaps when we get onto Charlotte, she might explain how it works for her. But 80% is on the job. 20% of the time is spent off the job, paid off the job learning. So they're being paid for, and a typical, you know, the real typical side is that day release where you work 4 days a week, and on the 5th day you go off to perhaps a college, perhaps maybe doing more online now. We have a lot of training providers, colleges, universities delivering a lot of online materials. It might mean that you actually go away to a classroom, that you're actually sitting in a classroom, back to how it may seem at school. Or it might mean that we have employer providers as well, where actually they have a training room upstairs and it happens upstairs in their training office. It's very different. And for some, which is why it's important they ask at their interviews, it could mean block release. It could mean you work for 4 weeks at a time, and then on the 5th week you go off to a university college. But they're all different. But the important part is 20% of your time is paid off the job training. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so higher and degree apprenticeships are becoming more and more popular. A lot of the apprenticeship levy is spent on this. They're great. The real big appeal always seems when I'm doing college presentations or sixth form presentations is that there's no debt to pay. Now, although I think, wow, amazing, no debt to pay, for me, the biggest buy-in to recommend higher and degree apprenticeships is actually that company are investing in you, they're taking you on, and you are actually going to be already working for them, training with them, learning with them, you'll be being paid, you've got no debt and experience. Wow, you're going to come. But by the time the undergraduates have completed their university degree, you'll have had 3 years experience with that company, and the chances are, and most of them are, you'll already be further ahead within the company than somebody starting on an undergraduate programme. I can't guarantee that, but that is usually the experience. Now, when I meet higher and degree apprentices, and luckily for us, we've got Charlotte on the line today, they are usually so enthused with what they are doing, and hopefully we'll get Charlotte to share some of her experiences of working online as well, because that's quite different for a young person not going into an office. There's one company that I work very closely with over in Winchester. They've just recruited 17 apprentices this year, and all of them were recruited online. All their tests were done online, and their induction was done online, and none of them have yet been into the office. So we are living in very different times, but hopefully the vaccine's here, guys. We'll be moving on soon. Okay, next slide, please. Right, okay, so this is the vacancies that I found when I put the slides together only this week. Now, this is really low for Woking. Usually when I'm talking a 20-mile radius of Woking, because it takes in obviously part of London, we're talking way over 1,000, if not 1,500 vacancies. What is good though is at the start of COVID, I think we had a bit of a clear out on some of the vacancies as well, and we know that these vacancies are really current. And you know, this is just in Woking, we've got 21 vacancies that we're looking to fill. These are real vacancies, and I know that there'll be more coming to the market. We've seen more coming to the market and some really good opportunities. So this is low. Let's hope it's going to increase. Let's hope this vaccine will help us get back to normal very soon. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I don't know your young people. Obviously, they're people that you work with, and it's really different for me doing this presentation because I thought I'd do a real snapshot of guessing the sorts of things that perhaps they might be involved in. These were all within the 5 miles of Woking, apart from the Bam Nuttall one down at the bottom. You'll see at the top a hairdresser apprentice, that's minimum wage, but actually if you're going in and you're learning and you're earning at the same time, I always say, you know, if you're at college, you're not. And actually, I know hairdressers, oh, I've just seen my spelling mistake. I know sometimes when people do hairdressing at college, some of my providers get slightly irritated with that because actually they say they should be doing it in a workplace. It's better for them. They're getting the experience then if they're doing it in the workplace. We always have a lot of hairdressers looking for apprentices, so keep an eye out for that one. Nursery nurse, apprentice, again, we usually have quite a lot of those available. And then so they were both 2 level 2 vacancies that I picked up. I again picked up 2 level 3 vacancies, which I thought may have been 3 level 3 vacancies actually of what would be interesting. And then I put on there the civil aviation, civil engineering apprentice with BAM Nuttall. BAM Nuttall actually have been delivering apprenticeships for as long as I can remember. I think they're still based in Camberley, and I know apprentices have really good opportunities working with them. Okay, so that's just a snapshot. That's just what I thought you might be interested in. And you know, I'll give you the tools so that you know where to go and have a look. Okay, next slide, please. So how do you find an apprenticeship? This is the website that I use all the time, that I take into schools as well, and we try and encourage all of our young people to register on the Find an Apprenticeship website. It's a great website, and the reason why it's so good, and particularly for you as parents of these foster children, is actually because you can keep your options really open. So if you have a young person coming in, I would get them to register. I would firstly find out what sort of that they're working in. And then there's an area that you can be quite specific in the sector you think they might want to work in. Now, if you go too specific, you'll miss a lot of things. And I always say to the young people when I'm meeting them, you only know what you know. So actually, if you're missing a whole load of things, you might be missing an opportunity that might be really good. For example of this, a couple of years ago, I remember there was a customer service job that came up with it was a company in Camberley, and I just couldn't believe this job. It was customer service, but it was working with pets, taking them abroad on a plane and being their sort of person that was going to pick them back off the plane, take them, join them back up with whoever. And it was just such a really exciting vacancy. And I thought, gosh, if I hadn't kept my search open, I'd have missed that. And again, you know, when we're talking about some of those companies that have some of the back office staff, you might miss it if you don't keep it open. So always keep that open. It's a great website, so you can register. You can then do some research, and you can actually search and apply through this website, and you can set up alerts for areas that you're interested in, and then you can contact companies and you can start applying. So really, really good website. Next one, please. So where else to look? Now, some vacancies, some companies, and this is because you're applying for a job, they don't always get onto the Find an Apprenticeship website. And that's where, if you really know what you want to do, you can search and look on company websites as well, because actually, and certainly a lot of the NHS jobs will be with the Primary Care Trust, so really important to look on that. Social media, I tell you where I find jobs with social media that are great, and it's quite often the local councils, and Surrey County Council often put apprenticeship vacancies on social media. And talk to family and friends. Now, when I've done this presentation, and I'll just use Reigate College for an example, and I've been into Reigate, I do 5 nights of presentation, sorry, 2 nights, 5 presentations there, with literally halls full of parents. And I remember when I first went in there and talked to them and asked them about who knows about the apprenticeship levy, and nobody really knew anything. A lot of them do know, parents now, about apprenticeship levy, and friends do, because they work with companies. You know, even my husband knows about the apprenticeship levy, not because I work in it, but because it affects the bottom line. And actually, I think through that, sometimes it can open doors through talking to family and friends. And also, you know, we get people that want to do, perhaps they want to become a plumber. They've got a friend that can take them on, give them some work experience. Then that friend says, actually, great, we can offer something. You know, we see the potential, it's really good. I want to do an apprenticeship? Then we can help develop that. So you can always get back in touch with me, and actually we can help develop that and turn it into an apprenticeship. There's a few things that you have to tick, health and safety and that kind of thing, but we can tick that. I'm just going to have a quick sip of my tea. And the other website, which I seriously recommend for all of you, is Amazing Apprenticeships. Now, what can do on there as well is sign up to the monthly parent magazine or leaflet that comes out on there, which is really good, and I've heard parents say that's great. But I also love that it's got little boxes on it when you go onto Amazing Apprenticeship, and in the middle, and this vacancy snapshot here, I love. If you're whatever people in the evening, you're maybe saying, Sue, talk to me about apprenticeships today, you might be able to go onto Amazing Apprenticeships and you can actually get them to click on these logos, the IBM logos, Spexio, there's a whole page of them, and they can have a look, sort of almost like a behind the scenes of what these businesses do and what they deliver and how they deliver it, and there might be some little videos on there as well, so I love that. And also Amazing Apprenticeships have just put together so many resources that you'd find useful and you can actually tap into, so really use that, but actually signing up to the parents letter would be really good. Okay, next slide please. Okay, there's some of the search places that you can go to, but you can also contact, I'm really happy for my details to be shared so that you can contact me. Next slide, please. And this just shows you some of the things that you can pick up on Amazing Apprenticeships. The resources are just awesome and really, really worth going in there, challenging people, having a look. You can look at, I'm interested in art, what apprenticeships are available to me. It's always my trickiest one, art, but I don't know why I use that one, but actually there are lots of places that you can go. Next one, please. I think it takes us to questions. Shall we talk to Charlotte before we go on to questions, Anna?
Sharing that because it's a bit more personal. Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I said, yep, absolutely. I'm just going to stop sharing the slides because it's a bit more personal. That way, and everyone can see everyone. Okay, lovely. So hopefully you can all see everybody back in the room again.
Cool. Okay, so I've got a little presentation to cover as well. Let me know when you can see my slides. Hopefully it's showing a slideshow.
Yeah, thanks, Charlotte. Cool. They're showing.
Cool. Okay, so my name's Charlotte Fitzpatrick and I am a Digital and Technological Solutions degree apprentice. It is a bit of a mouthful, and I work at BT, so I'm actually now in my second year, so I've been with BT for just over a year. So a little bit about myself and what I actually do as an apprentice. So everything that Sue said is completely true, and this is kind of, I guess, a bit more of a specific case study. So how it works at BT, my role is split into, aside from university, my apprentice and operational duties. So I am treated like any normal employee, and every 6 months I rotate into a new team of my choice. So I'm now my third team. So I've been in content operations, which is basically the team that looks after BT's version of Netflix. So I've been working with some really cool companies, so Warner Brothers, getting the deliveries of different content and media. I've then been in the platforms team, so that's basically the internal IT support, so helping with the internal network and all the applications that go on within the BT Tower, which is where I'm normally based. Obviously not at the moment, I'm at home. And then transformation, so transformation is more of a business, so it looks at how we can kind of develop the business, so BT as a whole. So even really in my first kind of year and a half, I've been in a really lots of different teams, all doing lots of different things and building up loads of skills. So I kind of mentioned a little bit more about my operational duties, but my apprentice duties, so BT really likes to get us working with some different skills. So we do careers fairs, so normally would go out to schools, especially National Apprenticeship Week. We're pretty much out for the whole week doing talks, presentations about what it's like to be an apprentice. We do work experience, so if people want to come into the BT Tower to do work experience, we host that. We plan it for the whole week. We liaise with all the different teams and make sure that there's time for people to take on the work experience students. Also, we do internal visits, so whether that's kind of a customer or just another BT employee that wants to come and visit the BT Tower, we host that and we do those visits. We also do external visits, volunteering, so we do loads of stuff. So currently, for the past year, I've been looking after a blog that goes out. So this goes out to all of the BT employees, and it's basically about all of the work that we do as BT Tower apprentices. We do so much work and so much great stuff and get involved with so much that we actually have time to, put out a blog to talk about all the stuff that we do. And currently now I'm looking at volunteering, so BT really loves people to get out. I think just as a general employee anyway, you get 3 days additional leave to do volunteering work, so I've been looking at how us as apprentices can get involved and help the community. And then in terms of actual university, so my specific apprenticeship, I go to university once a week, roughly about every 4 to 6 weeks. And then every Friday we have as a study day. So we'll normally be in office for that, and we all sit together. So there's about 25 of us apprentices actually in the BT Tower. So we all sit together and we go through our university work, and we can help each other, which is really great. And we get the time to do that. So everyone knows, our operational teams know, so we get enough time and space to actually do our university work. I also know that some other apprenticeship roles in BT, so every like Tuesday they'll go to university, so it does just depend. And our actual university course was developed by directors that worked at BT, so the course is specifically designed for us at BT to make sure that we get the most out of it. We can choose 2 specific pathways, so we can either go down the software route or networking route. Really, whatever route you choose, it doesn't matter, because you get so much experience in the job. University is just like a really great additional push. But say if I took the software route, I do so much networks kind of experience and learn so much on the job anyway. I really get so that's kind of a little bit about what I do as an apprentice. So the recruitment process, I know that Sue kind of touched on this a little bit, but I applied to loads of different companies when I was looking for my apprenticeship. I always kind of thought that an apprenticeship was the way I wanted to go. And the reason why I love doing talks about this and talking about my experience is because when I was in college and even in secondary school, I was always just told that I need to go to university, I need to do my UCAS. There was no support wanting to do an apprenticeship. I had no help whatsoever. I even sat down with the careers help team and they just kind of went on Google, so there wasn't really anything like that. So this is why I think events like this are really important, to kind of promote how important apprenticeships are, because I think it's really unfair that UCAS is pushed so not much, and there's so many amazing opportunities to apprenticeships, so the more that we can kind of get the word out, the better. So the recruitment process, I found this was the same for every company that I applied to. So I applied to British Airways, BBC, ITV, O2, TfL, and it all starts out with either a general application. Some ask for your CV, some don't, but the majority do. BT did, and then you might do a test. So it could be like a situational strengths test. So that might just be something like there's 4 different scenarios, and you just have to rate which one you would most likely, how you would most likely react. And then once you pass that, that's pretty much kind of an instant. You'd kind of hear back within a week whether you passed that or not. Then it goes on to a video interview. Now these are very weird. I've never experienced anything like this before, but basically you have to sit down in front of a camera and you'll have 2 or 3 questions or more thrown at you, and you just have to answer it in the moment. So it's kind of a bit like you're being a YouTuber, but there's no person there, you're just kind of talking to yourself. And this was before COVID as well, so this has kind of always been the way it's done. I found that the more I did of these, the better I got, and I think Barclays Life Skills is a website that you can use, and I think you can do practice video interviews on there. So I'd highly suggest just having a go at those, because it's just one of those things that you just need to get used to. And then, so once you pass the video interview, that normally takes a lot longer to hear back for, so it could be maybe a month or so. You're going to go into an assessment centre. Now, I've been to all different types of assessment centres. I've been to ones where I was where there was 20 people, and then I've also been to assessment centres where there was 200 people all being assessed at the same time. So normally assessment centres consist of a few different parts. So you've got your one-to-one interview, which is just a standard normal interview that you would kind of have at any job, asking, you know, like your classic interview questions. Then you'll probably do a group task. So for BT, we were split into groups of 3 people, and then we were given, I think it was a sheet with some different aims or some different, some fake scenarios or whatever that BT wanted to go through, and we were kind of asked to order them to specific, yes, what we thought was best, that kind of thing. But then I've also been in assessment centres where we've had to do a group task. So, you know, the classic, you're on a desert island and you've only got, you know, 5 items, and then there's a hurricane, that kind of thing, just to kind of see how you work as a group. And then there might be a test. So one assessment centre, I had to kind of just do like an English type test. And then for my BT one specifically, I was asked before the interview to prepare for a pitch, and I had to basically just come up with an idea that could help the community that BT would be able to support. So we're given time to kind of plan it. We were told what to do. So it was nice that it kind of wasn't sprung upon you, but some companies do kind of spring it upon you. And there's a website called The Student Room. So it's a blog, it's kind of like a forum site. And I found that really helpful when I was applying for different roles, because even though it's mainly aimed at university, they do have a lot of apprenticeship information on there. And I found that people would helpfully actually post on the forums if they'd done an assessment centre for an apprenticeship role, and they'd actually tell you what was in the test and what they had to do. So I found that really helpful as well. So kind of, yeah, as I said before, it can be quite a long process. It can take a couple of months from actually initially applying to being told that you got the offer. And there's a lot of waiting, a lot of checking emails. I think whilst I was applying, I checked my emails more than any other social media. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit of the recruitment process, and I found it was very similar across all different companies. So the more you can kind of get familiar with this process, the better. So myth busting. So again, I know Sue touched on this a little bit, but here are some common things that I hear a lot. So apprenticeships are often low skilled, or I always kind of felt at school that if you weren't as, academically good at school, you kind of thought, well, an apprenticeship is the only option for you, but that's absolutely not the case. Apprenticeships, as Sue showed you, you can have them at all different levels. I even know at BT you can do like a level 7 apprenticeship to become a chartered accountant. So it's really, there is, I guess, a kind of a weird stigma about them, and I don't know why. But no, apprenticeships are not low skilled. I'm doing a degree apprenticeship. A lot of people that I speak to didn't even know that was a thing. So that's absolutely not true at all. You won't have a social life, which again, completely not true. Yes, it's very different to university and the university social life that you get. But the difference is you have money, so you can afford to go out with your friends. We have a great apprentice community at BT. All of my apprentices in the tower and across BT, we all get on really, really well. We're really good friends, and it's great to have such a supportive network. Like, we often would go out after work for drinks or meet up and have social events and have team building days and stuff. So I love that. We do have like a really great social life. You don't get as many opportunities as you would at university. I guess this kind of links to a lot of people think that if you're an apprentice, you're just making tea, but that's absolutely, again, not the case. I've led on projects already. You're treated, or I am anyway, I'm treated just like a normal employee. I'm given workload that, you know, that someone that's been in the team for 20 years, I'll be working on the exact same things as them. I've been given my own projects to lead. So you are given a lot of responsibility, but you're not treated as kind of a hindrance. You're treated as someone that's really helping. But the beauty of it is that if you need a bit of time to focus on your university work, that's absolutely, 100%. That's the priority. So it's great because you don't feel like you're pressured, like that's it, I've stressed, I got all this workload on. If you need the time to do your studies, then that is the priority, but also you are given the responsibility and you can kind of go as far as you want with it. And we also get lots of additional opportunities. So things like this, being able to kind of build our soft skills, so being able to present, we do a lot of presenting, a lot of networking as well. So you make lots of contacts in different industries. A lot of our apprentices are also award winners for external companies. And as well, my current apprentice manager is actually an apprentice as well. So she hasn't even completed her apprenticeship yet, but she's already managing, and she's got like 20 apprentices under her. So she's already, like, she hasn't even qualified yet and she's already managing. So you get to build so many additional skills apart from the practical skills that you need for the job. You learn a lot, and my confidence has grown massively since I've started. I think kind of on my first week, and I sat there and my other apprentices were telling us about, oh, so you're going to be presenting, you're going to be doing X, Y, Z. I was sat there, I thought, I can never do this, I can't do this. And then, here I am, and I feel so much more confident in my abilities. So really, there's so many things that they offer you. And then another thing, I guess apprenticeships are only for engineering or hands-on roles. Again, this is not true. I know, so I personally am doing more of a technical role, but there is such a variety out there. You can do apprenticeships in customer service and all sorts of things, especially in BT. It's so wide. Like we've got marketing apprentices. There's just so many things out there. Unfortunately, sometimes they can be a bit harder to find. You do kind of have to look, but hopefully eventually that will get better and the more schemes there are on offer. But you've just got to know the right places to look, and once you do, you'll find something that will be suited to you, because there really is something for everyone out there. And then another thing, apprenticeships are poorly paid. I think one of the most common things that I get asked when I'm doing careers fairs and stuff is, how much money do you earn? Now, I think apprenticeships, well, for BT anyway, so the first year is standard, so I think it's about 16,500, but because I work in central London, I get London weighting, so that amounts to just under 20,000 for your first year. Then every year that increases, every year that goes up. So by the time I finish on my by the time I finish my apprenticeship, I'm on a really good salary, and I think that is the case for a lot of schemes. So initially it might look low, and Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of companies, the initial pay, I think it does go up every year. Normally it goes up by quite a lot. Well, it does in my case anyway, once I get my degree and once I qualify. So I think a lot of people get kind of stuck over that. They really think, oh, but I'm not going to get paid much. But if you think about it in the long term, you will. Your opportunities are a lot better. You're more likely to be a manager or going into these kind of higher up positions at a younger age anyway, because you've got so much experience. So a lot of people do get hung up on that. And then another thing that I'd like to mention that I also get asked a lot is, so you've done your apprenticeship, are you going to get a afterwards? So I know this varies for different companies, but for BT, we are 100% given a job afterwards. We actually get to choose what job role we go into. So the great thing about our rotations is we get to try different teams and see what teams we like. And if there's a team that we love, we will know that when we finish, we can go straight into that team. So there's that security there as well. So you just can, you know that you're going to have a job afterwards. I know that's not the same for all companies, but I think that's something that's great about BT and something that we get asked a lot. So my advice, so you've got nothing to lose by applying. You've got to apply to lots of roles. I applied to so many. I ended up getting an offer from BT and an offer from British Airways, but that's probably after a year more of applying and just getting used to kind of what they're asking for, and the kind of experience of going through this process. Again, get used to the application process. It's the same across the board. But another thing that I'd like to mention is not to solely focus on grades. So even though I'm doing a technical degree apprenticeship, kind of more in like the computer space, I actually failed my computer science GCSE. So the fact is that it's not about grades. I think university is very focused on grades, and there's a lot of pressure on young people at school to get the grades to get into university. But I think when you kind of come out of that system and you kind of come into the adult world, is that it's as much or even more so about your willingness to learn and kind of who you are as a person. You've got kind of compassion and an interest in the business, and I think quite often people get very hung up on grades, but they're not the be all and end all. You know, they are important, but I think especially for apprenticeships, the type of person that you are, and if you're willing to learn and adapt and just give it a go, I think that's also really important, and that's really good if you can kind of get that across when you're applying for these different roles as well. And be open to new experiences. I did English language, geography and film studies at A-levels, and now I'm doing kind of more of a computing technical role. So it just shows that, you know, you can do this. You don't have to have done it for your whole time at school. The beauty of apprenticeships is that they are there to train you up and to teach you and to learn, basically. So you don't need to have had all of these skills and qualifications in a certain area. You can absolutely go into a different area or go into a different industry that you've never even really thought of before. And if you told me even 2 years ago that I would be sat here working for BT in the telecommunications industry, I would not have believed you. But just by being open-minded and applying to lots of different apprenticeship roles and just having a look and thinking, oh, okay, well, I might be able to do that. That actually looks quite interesting. I think that's also really important, not to limit yourself. You learn so much by doing an apprenticeship, even though, as I said, I'm doing a technical role. I can do roles in project management, marketing, you know, IT. So even if you get an apprenticeship and it's in something that you don't necessarily find out that you really enjoy, you can learn so many different things. I think even just being in a business, there's so many different layers to business, being kind of getting your foot in the door and seeing what teams there are. There's teams I've worked in that I didn't even know existed, and I think that's a big part of it. At school, you're kind of shoehorned into these specific areas. It's like, well, you can do art or you can do English, but it's just not like that in real life. There's so many different roles and parts. So you know, I think being open-minded and just having that willingness to learn, I think will kind of help you go really